Hello and welcome to the first episode of Masala Talkies. This week, our guest is Indian comedian and actor Veer Das, who is visiting Dubai for the Dubai Comedy Festival. Now, he's been super busy throughout lockdown. He's been holding socially distant shows in Goa. He's been hosting Zoom charity comedy shows. And he's now in Dubai with new and special material. But he's also let us in on a little secret, his plans for the coming year. So stay tuned and watch the video.
You should have told us. We would have done this later. We could have slept like a few more hours or whatever.
It's good because I can finish everything and then just sleep around 12.
You freshly moved to DC?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. No, so
it's a great city.
I love it. But I mean, with the current political climate and the cases, it's interesting. But thank you so much for joining me on this interview.
Thank you for having me.
When do you fly to Dubai?
I fly, I don't know. I'm going to be really honest. Akash kind of takes care of that stuff, but I do know that I fly and then I'm not allowed to leave my hotel for like a day or 2 days. Yeah. So I'm doing that. So I'm assuming like 2 days before the show.
And you have, obviously you'll need to take multiple COVID tests. So you're looking forward to that?
I'm Jesus Christ. I've been taking them every week because I've been doing like outdoor shows in Goa. Oh. So I've been in Goa just running from the pandemic basically. We got out when we could, and then I do these outdoor shows in the middle of a forest. It's very Osho ashram. There's just like 60 people in an outdoor amphitheater. So because I do like 4 shows a weekend, I take a COVID test every Tuesday. So I'm utterly familiar with, how painful that shit is. Yeah.
What's that like? Does it hurt? Is it like, I've never had to take it, but is it real? Is the pain real?
It's not pain. It's just, there's something going into your brain from your nostril. Basically, it's really high up there. So it's just, it's not pleasant.
Oh my God. But it's been a really interesting year, especially for people in the entertainment and arts industry all over the world, just in India, everywhere. And people have really sort of used this time to be more creative. What was the Indian lockdown like for you?
It was kind of the opposite, actually. I've been so driven for the last kind of 5 years. I haven't had time to pause at all and just kind of figure out who I was. And that's what I really kind of used the pandemic for. I re-met my wife, I re-met my dog. I just kind of reacquainted myself with normal life because I live a crazy life, when things are normal, because usually if you're just an actor, you get to shoot a movie and then you're off for a few months. You get to go home at the end of the day. But, to do in the last 5 years, I've done like 2 American TV things, 2 Bollywood things, and 2 world tours, all in 5 years. So it's just been nonstop. So this was kind of a welcome thing to say, let me sit and read and let me write and let me, discover who I am again. So the new show that I'm bringing to Dubai is very much a reflection of that, just kind of letting go in terms of who you used to be.
And you say you've taken a break, but if I have the stats right, you performed over 30 virtual stand-up shows on Zoom between March and June for your fans across the globe.
I did, but that wasn't, that was less for me. That was more fundraising, to be honest. What we do is we do, I think like 180 or 200 people on a Zoom call, and then every night we'd pick a different charity. So it was, Voice of Stray Dogs or Help Age India or Cry or Angan, etc., etc. And we just give away, somewhere between, I think 70,000 to a lakh every night. We just give away to a charity.
Cool.
Yeah. So we did, I think, 37 shows, and I think we did them for like 24 different charities. Because the one thing that I realized pretty quickly is, after you're done donating to PM Cares and your, all of those big funds, there's still work to be done. I'm not a giant Bollywood star who can say, here's, whatever, a crore, etc. I can't drop that kind of cash in one go, but I have a platform and I can mobilize that platform. I can weaponize that platform for fundraising. So that's really kind of how I got through the pandemic, where I was like, okay, I have a show every evening. And because I had to do that show and everybody was very vulnerable and it was Zoom and it's super weird, it kind of led me into like this new material, which is a little more real.
And coming, working, it back into your new material for your Dubai show, is it going to reflect the life we've all been living for the last 10 months?
I think it's going to take you away from it. It's not going to ignore it, but I do believe that I have a responsibility to kind of make you forget that as well, So the theme of my show isn't this world sucks right now and it's going to be okay. It's very much, there's way more to this world than you're seeing right now. And let's talk about that, because this will be over soon. So, and I draw a line between those two things because, you never want to show up for a show and have like Tanhai pouring out of the artist and him having like an existential crisis on stage. You'd be like, what the I paid a lot of money for this. I got a babysitter, I drove, I a lot of my fans are like college kids who, the front row is like $5,000 or whatever it is in Dubai. They're like, man, we didn't go out for 2 months. So we could come and see this show. Like we didn't go drinking on Saturday. We didn't do anything. So then you don't want to bum them out at your show,
Yeah, I mean, comedy is used as often as an escape from reality. So that's what you kind of want to share with the audience as well. Just like take them away from the rigors of, whatever's been going on right now. Or is it like a mix of both?
I think it meanders. Like I think the perfect show, and I certainly haven't written it yet, meanders between they want to hear and say in the perfect proportion, because if you veer too much this way, you're self-indulgent, and if you veer too much that way, you're pandering and you're playing to the gallery, and neither one is a good comedian. So I think if you can manage to do both in a reasonably authentic manner, authentic being authentic to you, that's a good show,
And you grew up in Dehradun, if I'm not mistaken. And
I did, yeah. No, I didn't grow up in Dehradun. I was in Dehradun for like a minute. I was born in Dehradun and then I was taken to Africa when I was like a year old. So yeah.
And and then you were the first Indian sort of comedian to get their own Netflix show in 2016. How did that deal come about? Like, was it finally the moment? I mean, you'd had Bollywood movies before, but this was your first sort of global platform where you had, your own special, which, people would at that time was unheard of. Like, how did that come about and how did you feel?
I was terrified, but, I don't know. I kind of got a call from an agency in the US and they were like, do you want to come down and take some meetings, which is agent talk for, let's blow smoke up. And I went down to LA because I think a film had gotten cancelled or had gotten pushed. And I suddenly had like 2 free months. And suddenly I was like doing 2 sets at the Laugh Factory and doing like 15-minute sets and on a Tuesday night. And mind you, I hadn't done 15 minutes in a very long time because I'd sold out like arenas. I'd been doing like an hour and a half, etc. And I just found myself kind of invigorated, where I re-fell in love with stand-up again. And a 2-week trip turned into like a 6-week trip. And I ended up going up at the clubs again and again and again. And then I think buzz started to build in LA that, hey, there's this Indian guy and he's doing the rounds at the clubs and he's just gotten signed by this agency. And then I got taken to the Montreal Comedy Festival. And I flew to Canada from India and I did 8 minutes of stand-up. That's it, like literally for 8 minutes at something that Kevin Hart was producing. And suddenly a lot of industry showed up at that because of the LA buzz that had been going. And then, I headlined the Improv in LA and Netflix was there and they're like, we want to give him a special. So to me, I'd never even played like the YouTube game before. It's really ironic, but the first piece of stand-up that I ever really put online was a Netflix special. I'd put up like music on YouTube. I'd put up other stuff on YouTube. I'd never put up stand-up because I was like, my tickets are $5,000. I've earned my fans the hard way. You want my comedy, you pay, and you come see me. Costs money. So I was utterly terrified. I'm like, man, because a special is and forgive me if I'm rambling here, but a special is a piece of cinema at the end of the day. We forget that. It is filmmaking as much as it is stand-up. Some people think if you write the perfect stand-up routine and you just put it up, that makes a special, and it doesn't. Because a special has dynamics. Like a film, it has to warm you up. It has to drop you at certain points. It has to make you uncomfortable. It has to be stupid. It has to be, brave stuff in there. So that got me nervous when I started writing.
And like, did you ever, did your heart pump? Because I can't even imagine what it must be like to stand in front of millions of, or thousands of people at a given night and just wonder, like, is this going to fall horribly flat?
But that's the fun, right? I think the knowledge that the next thing you say could fall entirely flat is what gives you, that's the gamble, right? People think that stand-up is a collaboration between the audience and the comedian. It's not, it's a war. It's very much a battle. It's me versus you. Laughter is an involuntary response. It is an uncomfortable state for the body to be in. So I have to put you in that state because you feel good when that state is released. You feel better after the laugh is done than you do during the laugh. That's the psychology of it. Because during the laugh, your muscles are constricting, you can't breathe, etc., etc. And then you feel great when the laugh is done. So it's war.
Yeah. And, I know a lot of people have asked you this before, but, you burst into the Indian comedy scene at a time when not a lot of people understood what stand-up comedy really was. Like, yes, there were a few people who watched Seinfeld or who were into the cultural sort of scene of international stand-up comedians, but no one really knew what it would take for an Indian to make it big on the global stage. Like, looking back at your journey, is there anything that sticks out to you that says like, this is the moment when I knew I'd truly arrived, really?
I don't think I have yet. I'm just going to be honest. I have a lot to do and much bigger plans than I've accomplished right now. So no, I don't think I'm anywhere close to having arrived just yet.
And you have an exciting new show that was announced. I think it's a potential still, or I'm not sure if it's, because I couldn't find anything about it. You have, a Fresh Off the Boat spinoff. Maybe
I can't say too much about it. It's a maybe right now.
It's a maybe.
We did an episode with me and Preeti. It was fun, but all I can say is either that or something else. You'll definitely see me in. I did a show called Whiskey Cavalier with ABC, which didn't make it to a second season, but started off a very good relationship with them. And I've been in development ever since to find a project for myself. So I think you'll find me in an American TV show very soon and an American movie very soon, the minute I can shoot again.
Because that show, I mean, while it's a spin-off, potential spin-off, let's call it a Fresh Off the Boat, that show really made it big, and it was kind of like an outlier in the entertainment field. Like, no one had ever thought that a show on immigrants of color would resonate so deeply with a mainstream American audience when it first came out. And now you see the representation that people of color have on American TV, and it's grown by leaps and bounds in such a short time. Do you feel that as well?
I think so. I do think what we have to be conscious of is that now there's no such thing as an American story or an Indian story. There are only global stories now. And because even mainstream American network television is being watched more online than it is on mainstream American television. And so Fresh Off the Boat now has a gigantic international audience, right? And so a lot of the content that is important to me, being an Indian voice, and there's really, if you look at it, at American television right now, there's maybe 6 of us or 7 of us who are really headlining stuff or developing stuff, etc. If you look at like a Priyanka Chopra or a Surya Sharma or a Carl Penn or myself or Kher Saab, or, there's a couple of us that are doing this. I think what's important to all of us is to no longer tell our parents' story. The American Indian immigrant story that you've seen hazar times in hazar movies, etc., etc., etc. One suitcase came, dreams. That's not the story anymore. So can we tell a modern, relevant story about Indians today, an emotionally aspirational story?
Kind of
You know,
something that, Never Have I Ever on Netflix really sort of
yeah,
did very well. I
I
think
think so.
yeah.
But I think for a lot of people, America is now a country. It's not the be all and end all. Not all of us have cherry colored glasses about it. We've got some happening at home as well, and we're also flawed. And, I always I don't like playing Indian characters who have together and show up on time and are eager to please. No, we smoke, drink, aren't sure about our lives, marry the wrong person, those are Indian stories as well. So I'd like to tell some of those because I believe those are emotionally aspirational.
And you tweeted a couple of days ago something that I thought resonated really deeply with me as an Indian who grew up in India in a very multicultural society. And I'll read out two of your tweets that I think really resonated, not just with me, but with a lot of your fans who grew up in India at the same time we all did. We had friends of different religions. We had lovely, experiences. You said, whatever your faith, if your faith is still rattled by ads, jokes, books, movies, and art, it's not that strong. If you need a whole world to feel the same way you do, you're the one lacking conviction. And your second tweet was like, we tweet about what we like. I'm selective about my issues. So are you. It's impossible to outrage about everything without being a crazy person. Pointing out one outrageous selectively is ultimately pointless. Stop looking for equality in tweets, and we don't get that in life. I mean, I loved it because that's so synonymous with people sort of expressing their opinion on social media now and then being sucked into this back and forth with the trolls that you as a celebrity probably have to face more than anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the trolls in a different way. I just look at that as par for the course because I've never censored myself, touch wood, yet. I've done jokes about every religion. In every Netflix special, I've done jokes about literally every single religion, respectively. I do jokes about every government. So if I'm going to take the freedom to say the things I want to say, I have to grant that freedom to other people in good faith. Sometimes the things that you have to say to me might be less eloquent than the things I have to say to you. And that's fine too. That's par for the course. What I resent is the thought bubble, because at some level, we have to understand that this is an algorithm that is exposing you to material, text, news, and people that are like-minded and feel the same way you do. So it is reinforcing an echo chamber for you. And I think we all need to come to that collective knowledge. So I don't label everybody who disagrees with me as a troll. Absolutely not. But 80,000 bots doing all sorts of nonsense, etc., that's not real. And we have to start having a conversation about how that's not real. If you come to my show, there are left-wingers and right-wingers and, people of all faiths and political beliefs who, quite honestly, want to have a laugh, watch Big Boss and go to bed. Yeah, that's India at the end of the day. And their neighbor is a Muslim, and their neighbor is a Parsi, and their neighbor is a Christian, or a Hindu. So, yeah, I've definitely had like a sort of an eye-opening over this pandemic about social media and how it drives anxiety and echo chambers that aren't good for us.
I think a lot of people, given, just having the time to introspect personally over the course of this lockdown and really, kind of not, I think, find themselves the cliche a little bit, but look into what they've been through and the pace at which our lives have been led in the last few years, have taken a step back and be like, I don't need to take social media so seriously. At the end of the day, it's an internet medium. Do you think you've come to that conclusion as well?
I think my biggest takeaway from this pandemic, because I very much, and it's probably a bad idea to say this in a print interview, but I came out of this pandemic definitely thinking I want to spend the next 10 years of my life trying to be one of the best comedians in the world. That's a goal that I've set for myself. And when I look at people like Dave Chappelle or Bill Burr or Johnny Lieber or George Carlin, they got there being extremely, extremely authentic, to who they were. and really knowing themselves and who their voice is. And I think the more time you spend on social media, the more it takes you away from that authenticity. Because you're now living for other people and you're believing for other people and communicating for other people. And then you don't hone your own voice. So that's kind of the path that I'm on now. I tweet a lot and I say a lot, but, as somebody who has lived now, maybe I've had a career for 12 years in entertainment, and that's still a long career. The average lifespan of an actor to be relevant is like 5, 6, 7 years. So to even be around for 12 years is a blessing, and how. But to spend 12 years really looking for people's validation, looking for people's approval, and looking for people's love me, please, this and that, etc., etc. If you're always going love me, there's not a lot of time to be me. And I think the next 10 years, I'm just going to be the artist I would like to watch. I think that's my, and I don't think social media is a big part of that.
And that's so important for your mental health as well and your growth,
Yeah.
Now, coming back to your Dubai show, the South Asian audience in the UAE absolutely loves you. Your shows are always met with, an enormous amount of excitement.
Mm-hmm.
What are you most looking forward to this time in Dubai?
A crowd, I think, I'm performing in a forest for 50 people in Goa right now. I checked in with Akash and he's like, we sold 850 tickets. I'm like, what? 850? That's insane. And, they're going to be spread out, of course, because they're all socially distanced. And apparently this venue is gigantic. I've never been.
Which one?
But,
it's the Coca-Cola?
World Trade Center.
World Trade Center. It's massive.
Right. So I think we're literally doing like 40% of the capacity of this massive venue, right? 30 or 40%, because that's what we're allowed to do. So they'll be far away. I may not be able to hear the laugh properly, but, like I said, I'm most excited about the new stuff I've written, because I feel more creative than I've felt in a very long time post this pandemic.
And any chance you're going to go on, a world tour, given everyone's now going back into live shows and doing socially distant concerts at all?
I think so. I have to, I do think by the first quarter of next year, we'll see a lot of development, not just as far as, forget vaccine and all of that stuff. I think as far as how to travel safely, I think as far as medication you can take for COVID and immunity. I think people aren't talking enough about immunity and how to keep your immunity up while traveling internationally. So I started small. I started doing Goa gigs. Now I have some Delhi gigs. I have like 8 gigs in Delhi, which are in an outdoor amphitheater. I think I'll do England before the end of the year. Dubai's happened. And then, next year I'll hit the ground. But, there's also like a movie and a show and all of that stuff to do next year, which are all on hold right now. So we'll have to see.
You can't tell us anything about it.
Sorry. No.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me today on
Thank you so much.
We're so happy you could, take the time out to do this.
Cool. Cheers. Take care.
Bye. Thanks.